Hello, friends, and welcome to Weekly Witness, Texas Impact's weekly podcast designed to help mainstream Texans of faith understand the legislative process and help you engage with public policy in the great state of Texas. My name is Scott Atnip, your host and Texas Impact's Director of Public Witness, and y'all, we are less than 2 weeks away from early voting in Texas, so what better time to welcome back to the program Rebecca McIlwain, Texas Impact's Houston Faith Votes Project Manager. The Houston Faith Votes team and their cohort of congregations in the Houston area are doing some great work engaging their congregations and communities in civic engagement work. So I'm excited to talk to Rebecca about their work and how all of us can engage our neighbors this election season and begin preparing for what comes next. And I probably don't have to tell you that you can find tools to do all of that on our website. Check it out at texasimpact.org and spend some time specifically on the Texas Faith Votes page. There are resources to check your registration, door hanger templates, prayer resources, scripts for telephone calls, and so much more. And there are teams to connect you with people who care about the issues you care about. So check it out and get plugged in today. Y'all, we've talked about this election for months, and now we're only days away from early voting kicking off in Texas. So now's the time to make sure you and your networks have a plan to vote. Make that plan and put it on the calendar. And invite some friends and especially some low-propensity voters to join you. Community's good. Accountability's good, and I'm going to hold myself accountable to you all. I'm going Tuesday, October 22nd. I'm going to be bringing the breakfast tacos for the friends that we're voting with. Y'all, now is the time. If you have questions about any of it, except the breakfast tacos, I have a limited personal budget. But if you have questions about tools Texas Impact can offer, shoot me an email at scott@texasimpact.org. All right, y'all, enough wind up for today. I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation with Rebecca McIlwain. Joining us for today's conversation is Texas Impact's very own Rebecca McIlwain, who serves as the project manager for Houston Faith Votes. Rebecca, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I assume this is a very busy time for you. There's an election coming up, I hear. Life doing okay? You and your team's doing all right?
Yeah, actually, it's a very busy time and it's a very exciting time. People have gotten really into all of their get out the vote efforts. You know, that now, as of yesterday, they kind of shifted. A lot of churches were doing voter registration drives, but our project is mostly geared around voter turnout. And so we are full steam ahead on those projects.
Love that. You talk about the excitement, and you and I were in a room together recently in San Antonio. We've been together in Dallas and Houston and lots of other places. And it does seem like there is a palpable joy. There's a palpable excitement when these groups get together and start talking about civic engagement and talking about engaging people in voting work. Those faith leaders are fired up and doing some really incredible work. The vibes have been very positive. Talk about how much fun the civic engagement work can be and why that's important.
Well, you know, the thing that is so enjoyable about it is that they're really people who are smart, who care, and who value relationships. Nobody is going out as sort of the lone wolf trying to, everybody gets it intuitively that this is a team sport. Civic engagement is a team sport. And so there's just something innately enjoyable about it. And the creativity that people have around these projects, I just want to give a couple of examples. So one church and neighborhood did a caravan where people would sign up, and it was in your cars. They did a historical tour through this historically Black neighborhood in Houston, and they would stop along the way and tell the stories about what people have done and what this neighborhood has meant to people and different issues throughout history that have come about, and then ended with, and they decorated their cars. It was just so cool. And then it ended with a big voter get out the vote rally. At that time, there were people that were there that could register people to vote if they weren't registered, but there was also checking your voter registration and just all of the, the normal rah-rah about getting out the vote. And I just thought that was such an incredibly creative event. Another church did a inspirational video that is on YouTube, and they posted at the end of the video. It was mostly just prayer and asking God for unity and for strength and for community and guidance. And people we're talking about how we have to stand together to make a difference. And at the end of the video, there was the QR code, the ballot ready QR code, where people could, again, check their voter registration, make a commitment to vote. And they have gotten so much participation from that video. So just those kinds of things.
We were talking before we jumped on air before we started recording, about the importance of community, that people do feel isolated right now. And do you feel like this community building aspect of civic engagement work is important to engage people in public policy?
I really do, Scott. And, in fact, it's our bread and butter. I don't know that Texas Impact wouldn't exist without the belief that community matters and that community supports us, and so many others wouldn't either, because it's the heart and soul. I think, just a little philosophical, part of what our society struggles with is a sense of isolation. We see it where so many psychologists and mental health professionals are talking about how worried they are about this young generation that's grown up with social media as their go-to for entertainment and whatnot. And so to really reweave the fabric of community through our faith traditions and neighborhoods and civic groups and everything else that reweaves that fabric is just so incredibly vital. And the good news is that it's also the most joyful way to live as well, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. And I think it's also what positions congregations with both the ability to do this work, because it is a place where community gathers, but also is maybe a challenge for congregations to expand that community, to not just think about people inside their walls, but who else can we bring in to this work? Who else in our neighborhoods, who else in our community might be key voices to have at the table, but also, might need some extra motivation to do this work, right?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Another example of this one church who I think does that masterfully came to my mind. And we want to hear another story?
Sure. I love stories.
So this is Greenhouse International, and they make civic engagement at the heart of their ministry and of their church identity, really. And so they just had a big event where they pull in the community, the neighborhood. So on Sunday morning, it is, the preaching and the gospel. And then the other 6 days, it really is about taking care of your neighbor. And their event that they did, they had barbers who would set up, their chairs and offer free haircuts. They would offer door prizes for help with rent or help with utility payments. And they would have people there who could help talk about, educate people on how to vote. And there was, it was a holistic kind of approach to helping our neighbor. And it's gorgeous to see. And they had like 350 people throughout the day pass through that and check on their voter status and whatnot. And so it really is a way to not just be about what we believe as Christians, in that case, Christians, but it's also about reaching out to neighbors regardless of their faith orientation.
I love that. And I love the stories, hearing what people are doing. That said, you mentioned voter registration has passed. It's probably too late for a lot of listeners, if they're in congregations who haven't taken on one of these projects, to start something for this election cycle. That said, first of all, I hope folks will start planning for future civic engagement work. But what can listeners do over the course of the next few weeks to engage in this election cycle?
Well, I think the very best thing they can do is to go to texasimpact.org, or, you can go places like League of Women Voters, and get with a group. Call 3 or 4 of your best friends and say, okay, let's research. Let's figure this out. I don't want to learn all. I don't want to have to do all the legwork myself. Let's share. Look at the ballots, look at the propositions, and get it clear, and make yourself a little cheat sheet, a piece of paper, how it is you want to vote, and decide that together, as we're saying, in community. Look at what the different candidates are saying, and the reason I say go to Texas Impact or League of Women Voters is because those are nonpartisan, balanced perspectives that you can get the information. And I think that's one thing to begin doing. And again, I want to emphasize, don't try this alone. It can be overwhelming. Make it fun. Get with your friends and don't let it be overwhelming. The second thing that I really want to encourage people to is to look forward to January. So what we're doing here in Houston with the Houston Faith Votes is we're getting ready. We're going to have a post-election convening where we're going to talk about how we want to be then in the next, 6 months through the Texas legislative session. And there are teams on, of course, our website, Texas Impact website, that people can sign up for. But I think the very first step, if you're not at the point where you're already ready to jump on a team, is to talk to people in your congregation and just say, hey, election's going to be over soon, but we got a session here. How can we get involved and pay attention and learn and grow and have some fun doing it?
I love that, and we'll certainly share some resources for how folks can get it involved after the elections. Spoiler, Texas Impact has a lot. I do want to come back to that idea, though, of getting together with people and looking at ballots and researching candidates. My guess is that a lot of people who are listening to this program are probably well equipped to help other people have those conversations, right? If you're listening to a faith and public policy podcast, my guess is you've probably done some homework already. At least I hope you have. If not, you've got your homework assignment there. But I also hope that in addition to like good friends, we're also doing some intentional work at reaching out to people who really care or who might not be paying as close of attention to this. And I know you and I were talking before we started recording again about like just running into people who are not paying attention and how surprising it is to us.
Yeah.
So what do you hope folks will do about reaching out to some of those folks?
Well, I'll tell you another personal story here and this will be a model. I hope other people do this. Just a new friend of mine that I made in Houston, don't even know her very well. She sent out before the last, a lot of local races. I forget even when it was, but 6 months ago or whenever it was. She said, if anybody's interested, I've done a lot of legwork. Here's who I'm voting for. And I can't tell you how grateful I was that she did that, because I was kind of new to Houston still. I don't know some of the players. Some of them didn't match my precinct or whatever, or my district. So I couldn't take it, but I knew who she was. I knew her values. I knew they matched with mine. And I took that and I ran with it. And so here's what I would hope people would do. If you are one of those great people who understands and knows the lay of the land, you don't even have to send that. You can ask first, hey, y'all, I've done a lot of research. Would anybody be interested in seeing who I support or where my opinions are, or even who the Houston Chronicle or the paper says? Basically, let's help each other we can be drowning in information. Let's help each other stay afloat and send it. Most of us have friends who wouldn't mind hearing our opinions. Why don't we just offer and ask? Because I got to tell you, she saved my keister. That I wouldn't have known half of those races who I wanted to vote for, and she gave me some good insight.
And I'll add to that, while we're telling stories, I don't think I've told this on the podcast yet, but we were watching a Sam Houston State University soccer game a couple weeks ago, and some of the players from the soccer team I coach were there, and one of them brought their boyfriend who was 18 years old, and he just turned 18, and I said, did you register to vote? And he said, yes, but I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. My daughter was sitting near me and said, oh, you're in trouble now. So I wasn't telling this young man how to vote, but we had a very long conversation sitting in the stands of the soccer game about the importance of participating. And y'all, I'm telling you, the more and more young adults I talk to, my daughter's about that age now, the more and more it reminds me, we have some significant work to do to reach out to the young people in our communities and our congregations and our families to make sure that, number one, they're paying attention, and number two, they're making a plan to vote. And so now's the time to make that plan. I think I said on the podcast last week, I'm going October 22nd, and they're going to be breakfast tacos. And so now's the time to start putting on the calendar when you're voting, and maybe encouraging those less than likely voters to do the same, right?
Yeah. Well, another thing, my sister and I we've never done poll monitoring before, but we got these invitations through some organization, that they need poll monitors just to ensure that things are calm and peaceful and all that. And so get a buddy, a voting buddy, a civic engagement buddy, and just go out there. But yeah, I agree. Don't assume that it's going to happen without little talking it into existence.
talk it into existence, make a plan, buy breakfast tacos. I don't know. You started going this direction a second ago, and I brought us back to voting. But when we think about civic engagement work, we most often think of voting. We most often think of election cycles. And my hope is we'll always be thinking about the importance of voting in election cycles, but there's a lot more to civic engagement. You mentioned participation in the legislature, but what else do you hope people are thinking about in terms of civic engagement as we move through election season and into what comes next?
Well, I hope people are thinking about the long game, and that we're trying to pace ourselves so people don't just crash after the election, like, oh, I can't do another thing, but to really play the long game. And that means there's always another election. So gathering, basically, I want to speak to churches who are doing things just to make sure you hang on to that data that you're collecting, all those sign-in sheets. People, you're building contacts, you're building relationships all along the way. And so hang on to that and know that you may be too tired to do anything with it now, but there'll be a time that you may want to reach back out to those folks who came to your issues forum or your block walk or whatever. And so view those relationships as the precious thing they are, value them, and build on them. So that's one thing, value the relationships. And the other is to stretch yourself into what go beyond your comfort zone, especially coming up with the legislative session. So if you're not, and you have never even seen yourself to be someone who would go to the Capitol and talk to your state rep, or even call their district office down, in your own town and tell them, how you stand on an issue, just begin to imagine yourself in that role. That would, and again, talk to people about it. Have you ever done that? Have you, I don't know. Have you? No, but you can begin to encourage just your friends, your family, your neighbors, your church members, and go that little distance to see yourself in that role, because I got to tell you, it is really fun. It is really meaningful, and it really helps.
Yeah. And, we were at that event together in San Antonio. One of the things I said then, I've probably said in way more events than just there, but representatives are not superheroes, right? They almost to a person, they ran for office because they wanted to make life better for people in their community. They're looking for relationships with people in their community because they signed up to represent you, right? And so find some friends, schedule a meeting, start to build relationships with your elected representatives. That's why they're there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a solid homework assignment. And Texas Impact certainly has tools for you on our website if you're interested in doing that kind of work.
Yeah. Amen.
Rebecca, you have been working with congregations, and I know we've talked about it a little bit throughout this conversation. But why do you think it's especially important that congregations specifically engage in this type of work?
Well, it's any way that we can build and strengthen our sense of community will be good and wholesome and good for our congregation, good for our society. But this is one way that people often shy away from civic engagement because they fear that it will be divisive. But the flip side of any risk is great gain, and if it's done well, and if it's done with sensibility and compassion and just plain intelligence, there's no reason it has to devolve into a divisive thing, and the payoff for the sense of community and the sense of oneness and togetherness and just mutual benefit is huge. And so I think it's very much worth the risk. I had one leader from Houston Faith Votes talk to her pastors, and she said, pastors and elders of her congregation, and she said, they were very nervous about me getting involved in this, but once I told them that it wasn't about political parties, it wasn't about being partisan, it was really about making the world better and living our faith values, she said they are so on board and have done amazing things this election season at that congregation. So I think it's important because our sense of community is what is at stake, and the payoff is really good, really worth the risk.
I love that. Thank you for that reflection. Before we close out today, any closing thoughts or shameless plugs you want to leave us with?
Well, let's see. I'm talking to some San Antonio people. We're going to be looking to start a San Antonio Faith Votes. And so if you're hearing this and you're in San Antonio, hey, let us know. Right into Texas Impact. Say, I want to jump on that bandwagon. So that's one shameless plug. The other is just to keep going. Don't. Yeah. There's also well, this is more for Houston people, but it's when we wake up on Wednesday. That's happening this week. So, if you want to get on that and you're in Houston, you can reach out to us as well. But other than that, just keep going and thank everybody that you're working with for their participation and really go at it together.
Rebecca, I am grateful for the time, but it has been so much fun getting to know you and seeing the work that you and all the congregations are doing in Houston. I'm so excited for all of you and really appreciate you spending the time today. Thanks again.
Well, thank you. It was fun. I love these conversations. Thanks for inviting me.
I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation with Rebecca, and I hope you're finding fun and creative ways to engage your communities this election season. Y'all, we can have some fun doing this, so reach out to some friends, or better yet, make some new friends and go make a difference together. As a reminder, Texas Impact has tools for you, including our teams, where you can join with other Texans from throughout the state who care about these issues. Check out the website at texasimpact.org to join a team or to learn about other opportunities. Again, special plug this week for the Texas Faith Votes resources. While you're on the website, I hope you'll take a moment to sign up to be a member of Texas Impact. Your membership supports this podcast and all of the work to engage Texans of faith to advocate for a more just and equitable Texas. If you have questions about any of it, please reach out. You can reach me at scott@texasimpact.org. And with that, I think it's time to close out this episode. So remember, the world needs Texans of faith active and engaged. So let's get to work.
Weekly Witness is hosted by Scott Atnett, engineered and produced by David Fasalo. Our executive producer is B. Moorhead. The opinions expressed on Weekly Witness are those of Texas Impact and our guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors. Weekly Witness is a product of Texas Impact, people of faith working for justice. Visit us online at texasimpact.org.